The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as Representative Zorlak of the Vexian Empire stepped forward. His blue skin glistened under the soft lights as he moved to address the gathered officials from across the galaxy. The massive circular room housed thousands of beings from over 500 different worlds, yet you could hear a pin drop. "Esteemed colleagues," Zorlak began, his voice carrying through the chamber, "I bring troubling news from the human delegation." Whispers spread through the audience. The humans had always been a topic of heated debate. It seems our recent decision to deny their petition for full membership has triggered an unexpected response. On the viewing screen behind him appeared the face of Jack Miller, one of Earth's final representatives to the Council. Unlike the angry outbursts that had followed previous rejections, Jack's expression remained calm, almost peaceful. "Distinguished members of the Galactic Council," Jack said in the recording. "For 50 years, humanity has sought equal standing among the stars. 3 times we have petitioned, and 3 times we have been denied. We have listened to your concerns, adjusted our policies, and demonstrated our commitment to galactic peace. Yet the answer remains no." Jack paused, his eyes scanning the faces of those who had voted against Earth once again. Rather than continue this pattern, Earth has chosen a different path. Effective immediately, we activate Project Exodus. Within 5 years, humanity will remove itself entirely from Galactic Council space and jurisdiction. Laughter rippled through sections of the chamber. Humans were known for dramatic gestures when they didn't get their way. "He can't be serious," muttered Counselor Ilara of the Aetherian Collective, her wispy form shimmering with amusement. Where would they even go? In the back of the chamber, Senior Archivist Nancy Harper frowned. Unlike most council members, she had spent centuries studying human history. She knew they rarely made empty threats. "We wish the Galactic Council prosperity in its future endeavors," Jack continued. "Our ambassadors will remain in place for 3 more months to settle any outstanding matters. After that, contact will be limited to emergency channels only." The recording ended, and chaos erupted in the chamber. Some representatives laughed, others shouted questions, and a few sat in stunned silence. "Order," demanded High Counselor Vren, his tentacles waving for attention. "This is clearly a negotiation tactic. The humans seek to pressure us into reconsidering their petition." Nancy Harper moved forward, her elderly frame moving slowly between the massive aliens that towered over her. At 103 years old, she was one of the few humans granted permission to work at Council headquarters, though only in a non-voting capacity. "High Counselor," she said, her voice barely audible above the commotion, "I believe we should take this threat seriously." "Archivist Harper," Vren acknowledged with the barest nod. "Please explain your concern." Throughout human history, they have shown remarkable resilience when unified by a common goal. If they truly have decided to leave Council space, they will not be deterred by diplomatic pressure. Counselor Ilara floated closer, her transparent body glowing with skepticism. "And where would billions of humans go? Their technology is centuries behind true interstellar colonization." Nancy's eyes narrowed. "Are you certain about that? When was the last time the Council conducted a full technological assessment of Earth?" The silence that followed her question was telling. "The humans have been denied expansion rights for decades," Nancy continued. "Their population is confined to a single system, while species that joined the galactic community centuries after them have been granted multiple colony worlds. Perhaps they've been planning this longer than we realize." High Counselor Vren's skin darkened with concern. "We will monitor the situation. If the humans wish to isolate themselves further, that is their choice. The Council has existed for millennia before them, and will continue long after this tantrum has passed." Nancy Harper said nothing more, but as she returned to her position at the back of the chamber, a chill ran down her spine. She had lived long enough to recognize the beginning of something momentous. The Council had made a terrible mistake, and soon enough, everyone would know it. 3 months passed before the Galactic Council took any real action. Nancy Harper had spent those months gathering data, presenting reports, and trying to make the council understand the gravity of the situation. Finally, they agreed to send an observation team to the Sol system. The council ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the edge of human space. Counselor Draz, a tall reptilian with golden scales, led the mission. Nancy stood beside him on the bridge as they got their first view of the Sol system in real time. "By the eternal stars," Draz whispered. The space around Earth buzzed with activity unlike anything the Council had seen before. Massive space elevators stretched from the planet's surface into orbit. Construction yards floated in space, building enormous ships that dwarfed even the largest Council vessels. "What are those?" asked Draz, pointing to the huge cylindrical structures taking shape. "Generation ships," Nancy replied quietly. "Self-contained worlds designed to support millions of people for centuries of space travel." A communication request flashed on their screen. A man with short brown hair and a simple gray uniform appeared before them. "Council vessel, this is Alan Wright, Earth Liaison Officer. You are cleared to approach Earth orbit. Please follow the designated flight path to avoid construction zones." Draz acknowledged the instructions, then turned to Nancy. "They knew we were coming." "Of course they did," Nancy said. "Earth's defense systems have likely been tracking us since we entered the system." As their ship moved closer to Earth, the true scale of the human operation became clear. Entire cities were being dismantled on the surface. Materials flowed up the space elevators in a constant stream. Mining ships swarmed around Mercury, which looked noticeably smaller than it should. "They've reduced Mercury's mass by approximately 1/3, reported the ship's science officer. "The raw materials are being converted into ship components." When they docked at the orbital station, Alan Wright greeted them with a polite smile. "Welcome to Earth, or what's left of it. I'll be your guide today." Draz stepped forward with the formal dignity of his position. "The Galactic Council wishes to discuss the concerning developments observed here." Alan's smile didn't waver. "Of course. We're happy to show you our progress." He led them through the station to an observation deck overlooking Earth. From this vantage point, they could see vast areas where cities once stood now being systematically taken apart and processed. "What you're seeing is Phase 2 of Project Exodus," Alan explained. Phase 1 was research and development, completed over the last 40 years. Phase 2 is resource collection and fleet construction. Phase 3 will be departure. "Where will you go?" asked Draz. "There are no habitable systems outside Council space within reasonable travel distance." Alan's eyes twinkled. "We've identified several promising regions. Our navigation data is quite thorough." Nancy noticed how carefully he avoided specifics. The humans weren't sharing their plans. "This is madness," Draz said. "You're dismantling your homeworld." "We're recycling it," Alan corrected. "Everything of value is coming with us." "The Council is prepared to reopen discussions about human membership," Draz offered, abandoning his planned approach. The situation was far more serious than they had been led to believe. Alan shook his head. "I'm afraid Earth is no longer interested in Council affairs or approval. We've chosen our path." "But surely your people would prefer to remain part of the galactic community," Draz pressed. "We can schedule emergency meetings, fast-track a new membership application." "Counselor," Alan interrupted gently, "you're 3 rejections too late. Our minds are made up." Later, as they prepared to depart, Nancy looked out at the fleet under construction. By her count, there were at least 100 massive ships in various stages of completion. Each one could house millions of humans. "They're really leaving," Draz said, his voice hollow. "The entire species." Nancy nodded. "And the Council has only itself to blame." As their ship pulled away from Earth, Nancy watched her homeworld grow smaller. The blue planet that had birthed humanity was being transformed by its children one final time. Not for conquest or expansion, but for exodus. A lump formed in her throat as she realized she might never see Earth again. Back at the Galactic Council headquarters, the emergency session buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from all major galactic powers crowded the chamber, their usual formal procedures forgotten in the rush. Nancy Harper stood at the center, her small human frame dwarfed by the massive aliens around her. "The evidence is undeniable," she said, her voice amplified throughout the hall. "Humanity is not bluffing or negotiating. They are leaving permanently." On the main display, images from their visit to Earth played in sequence. The construction yards, the half-dismantled cities, the mining fleets stripping Mercury for resources. "How did we fail to see this coming?" demanded High Counselor Vren. Nancy gestured, and the display changed to show a timeline. The pattern was always there. 3 rejected membership applications over 50 years. Countless technology-sharing proposals dismissed. Human colonies restricted to their home system, while other, younger species were granted expansion rights. From the back of the chamber, a human man stepped forward. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, but with a small council pin that marked him as something unique. Counselor Greg Patterson, Nancy introduced him, Earth's first and only full representative on the Interspecies Trade Committee. Greg nodded to the assembly. "For 20 years, I've submitted reports about human innovation and our eagerness to join the galactic community as equals. For 20 years, these reports have been filed away and ignored." He activated his data pad, and new images appeared on the screen. Secret council meetings, classified assessments, internal memos. "How did you get these?" gasped a Danubian representative. Greg smiled thinly. "Humans have always been better at information technology than you gave us credit for. Your systems aren't as secure as you believe." The images showed council members discussing human advancement rates in worried tones. Strategy sessions planning how to limit human expansion. Voting records showing how applications from other species were fast-tracked, while Earth's petitions were deliberately delayed. "You feared us," Greg said simply. "You saw our rate of advancement and decided we were dangerous. Too unpredictable. Too different. So you contained us." Nancy brought up a new set of images. "What you didn't know was that after the first rejection, Earth's leaders created what they called the Century Plan." The display showed underground facilities, hidden research labs, and classified training centers. While publicly continuing diplomatic efforts, humanity began preparing for complete independence, Nancy explained. They doubled down on research areas the Council restricted. They built secret shipyards in the asteroid belt. They trained generations of children for life beyond Council space. Counselor Ilara's transparent form flickered with distress. "But why not tell us? We could have addressed their concerns." Greg laughed, the sound echoing harshly in the chamber. "We tried. Every formal complaint was dismissed. Every petition for reconsideration was denied. Eventually, we realized the Council had no intention of treating humans as equals." "That's not true," protested Counselor Draz. "We simply wanted to ensure galactic stability." "By keeping us in our place," Greg replied. "After centuries of observing your treatment of lesser species, humanity decided we wanted no part of your hierarchy." Nancy brought up a final set of images. Earth scientists working on technologies the Council had deemed either impossible or too dangerous to pursue. Gravity manipulation, faster-than-light communication, matter conversion on a massive scale. "While you watched our official research channels, our best minds worked in secret," Nancy said. "The technology gap isn't what you think it is." Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. For decades, the Council had carefully managed what they saw as a potential threat, never realizing they were creating exactly what they feared most, a human civilization completely outside their control and oversight. "How long have you known?" High Counselor Vren asked Nancy quietly. "I've suspected since the beginning," she answered. "I chose to stay behind, to be here when you finally understood what you'd done." Someone needed to witness the moment when the Council realized its mistake. The Galactic Council took 3 days to fully understand what was happening. 3 days of emergency meetings, frantic data analysis, and growing fear. On the 4th day, the Council's top scientists presented their findings to the assembled representatives. Based on our observations, humanity's scientific advancement has consistently outpaced our projections, said Chief Scientist Lorix, her 6 eyes blinking nervously. Without Council oversight, their development will accelerate exponentially. She displayed technical scans of the human Exodus fleet. Their ships incorporate technologies that our scientists barely understand. The energy systems alone are at least a century ahead of what we believe humans capable of producing. Next came the economic experts. A small green alien named Grell waddled to the center of the chamber, his datapad clutched tightly. The economic impact will be severe, he squeaked. Over the past 50 years, human goods and services have become deeply integrated into galactic trade networks, despite our attempts to limit their influence. Graphs and charts flashed across the main screen, all showing sharp downward trends. 17 Council worlds rely on human medical technologies, Grell continued. 32 import human food products. Over 100 use human entertainment media. All these connections will be severed when they leave. The mood in the chamber grew darker with each new report. Species that had voted against human membership now faced the consequences of that decision. We must stop them, declared Representative Zorlak of the Vexian Empire. If necessary, by force. High Counselor Vren raised his tentacles for silence. We will not resort to violence. Instead, we will offer new terms. Within hours, the Council drafted a new membership offer for humanity. It included everything they had previously denied. Full voting rights, unrestricted research, colony world allocations, and positions on all major Council committees. A diplomatic mission led by the Council's highest-ranking members rushed to Earth. Their ship was the fastest in the Council fleet, yet they nearly collided with massive cargo haulers leaving the Sol system as they arrived. When they landed, they found Earth changed even in the short time since the observation team's visit. Entire continents showed bare Earth where cities had once stood. The oceans were dotted with massive platforms harvesting resources from the deep. The air smelled of metal and ozone. Instead of being greeted by Earth's traditional government representatives, they were met by a woman in a simple jumpsuit with a patch reading Exodus Authority. Director Samantha Parker. She introduced herself. Earth's government dissolved 3 weeks ago. I oversee the transition phase. High Counselor Vren presented the Council's new offer with as much dignity as he could muster. We hope this demonstrates our sincere desire for humanity to remain within the galactic community. Samantha read through the document briefly, then handed it back. Thank you for the gesture, but humanity no longer requires what the Council offers. You can't be serious, sputtered Counselor Ilara. We're offering everything your people have asked for over the past 50 years. What we asked for 50 years ago isn't what we need now, Samantha replied. You forced us to become self-sufficient. We've adapted to that reality. But you're abandoning your homeworld, said Counselor Dras. Surely that's not what your people truly want. Samantha gestured toward the empty landscape. Earth was our cradle, but we've outgrown it. The stars are our future now. Where will you go? Asked Vren, trying one last approach. The galaxy is dangerous. There are threats beyond Council space that you cannot imagine. For the first time, Samantha smiled. Perhaps, or perhaps the Council has simply never been brave enough to find out what's really out there. The diplomatic mission returned to Council headquarters in stunned silence. Their offer, which would have been revolutionary just a year ago, had been politely dismissed. Humanity had moved beyond wanting a seat at the Council's table. They had built their own. Desperation spread through the Galactic Council like a virus. As news of humanity's imminent departure reached the outer worlds, markets crashed. Medical facilities that relied on human pharmaceuticals began rationing supplies. Entertainment networks scrambled to fill the gaps left by popular human media. In a closed session that excluded all observers, including Nancy Harper, several Council members proposed a drastic solution. "We cannot allow them to leave," said Representative Zorlak of the Vexian Empire. "The stability of the galaxy is at stake." "Are you suggesting military action against Earth?" asked Councillor Draz, horrified. "If necessary," Zorlak replied. "We have the largest combined fleet in known space. A show of force might make the humans reconsider their position." High Councillor Vren's skin darkened with concern. "We are peacekeepers, not conquerors. I cannot support an attack on Earth." The debate raged for hours. In the end, the proposal for direct military intervention was defeated by a narrow margin, but a compromise was reached. A covert operation would target key Exodus infrastructure, specifically the primary navigation database on Mars. Without accurate star charts and navigation data, the human fleet would be unable to safely travel beyond Council space. The mission was authorized under the highest level of secrecy. An elite team of operatives from the Council's security forces was assembled and briefed. Their orders: infiltrate the Mars facility, corrupt the navigation database, and leave without detection. 3 days later, alarms blared in the Council headquarters. Nancy Harper burst into the High Councillor's private chamber without waiting for permission to enter. "What have you done?" she demanded, her face pale with anger. Before Vren could respond, the main communication screen activated. The face of a stern-looking man with short gray hair appeared. "This is Frank Rogers, Security Chief for the Exodus Authority," he said without preamble. "Approximately 6 hours ago, we apprehended a team of Council operatives attempting to sabotage our Mars navigation facility." Vren stared in shock. "Impossible. They were our best agents." Frank's expression remained hard. "Your best were detected the moment they entered our system. We allowed them to proceed to gather evidence of Council intentions." He stepped aside, revealing the captured team in a holding cell. None appeared injured, but all looked deeply shaken. "Our security systems are far more advanced than you anticipated," Frank continued. "Did you really think we wouldn't protect our most valuable data?" Nancy turned to Vren. "You fools. You've just confirmed every suspicion humanity ever had about the Council." Frank spoke again. "As a courtesy, we are returning your operatives. A shuttle will deliver them to the Council station at the edge of the Sol system. Consider this your final warning. Any further interference will be met with decisive force." The screen went dark. Silence filled the chamber until Vren finally spoke. "How did they detect our team so easily?" "The operation was planned with our most advanced stealth protocols." Nancy laughed bitterly. "You still don't understand. Humanity hasn't shared its true technological capabilities with the Council for decades. The gap isn't what you think it is." Within hours, news of the failed operation spread throughout Council space. Several younger member species began formal protests, seeing parallels between humanity's treatment and their own second-class status within the Council. The representatives from the Tauran Confederation, a relatively new member, approached Nancy after the emergency session. "Our people have been watching these events closely," said their leader quietly. "If humans can find a path beyond Council control, perhaps others can too." Nancy looked at the young alien thoughtfully. "The Exodus fleet is large, with room for allies who share our vision." "Is that an invitation?" the Tauran asked. "Let's call it a possibility," Nancy replied. "Sometimes the best way forward is to start fresh." As she walked away, Nancy felt a strange mix of sadness and pride. The Council had feared that humanity would disrupt the established order. In trying to prevent that disruption, they had guaranteed it would happen. 2 years passed since humanity announced their intention to leave. The Galactic Council had established an observation post at the edge of the Sol system, monitoring the final preparations of the Exodus fleet. Today was the day they had all been waiting for, the day humanity would begin its departure. Council observers from a dozen different species crowded around viewing screens. None wanted to miss this historic moment. Nancy Harper stood among them, her aged face showing mixed emotions. Though she had chosen to remain with the Council as their human expert, part of her heart would leave with the fleet. "They're moving," announced the chief observer, an Arcturian with glowing blue skin. On the main screen, the first wave of the Exodus fleet began to move out of Earth orbit. 100 massive ships, each one a city in space, formed a perfect line as they accelerated away from the cradle of humanity. "Magnificent," whispered Counselor Draz, who had returned for this moment. "I never thought I would see such a sight." Each vessel was essentially a self-contained world, with rotating habitats providing gravity for the millions of people within. Their hulls gleamed in the sunlight, a testament to human engineering and determination. Gardens were visible through transparent sections, and lights twinkled from countless windows. "We're receiving a transmission from the lead ship," said the communication officer. The face of Karen Davis appeared on screen. As captain of the flagship New Horizon, she had been selected to lead the first wave of departing humans. "Greetings from the Exodus fleet," she said, her voice calm and clear. "Today marks the beginning of humanity's new journey. 3 billion of us depart in this first wave, with 7 more waves scheduled over the next decade." The observers watched in silence as she continued. Some might expect this message to be filled with bitterness or accusations. It is not. Instead, we extend an open hand to the galaxy. Karen's expression softened. "Any individual beings from any species who share our vision of true freedom and unlimited potential are welcome to join us. Our journey is not one of isolation, but of new beginnings and new connections made on equal terms." The communication officer looked up in surprise. "We're detecting multiple small ships departing Council worlds throughout the system. They appear to be heading toward the human fleet." Nancy smiled. "It seems some have already decided to accept the invitation." On the screen, Karen finished her address. "To those who choose to remain within Council space, we wish you well. Perhaps someday our paths will cross again under better circumstances." The transmission ended, and the observers watched as the 100 ships of the first wave moved in perfect formation toward the edge of the solar system. Their massive engines glowed with an energy signature unlike anything in the Council database. "Their trajectory will take them beyond Council space," noted the chief observer, "toward the unexplored regions of the Sagittarius Arm." "What's out there?" asked a young Danubian observer. "Unknown," replied Draz. "Our exploration has been focused on consolidating known territories, not pushing boundaries." "That's the difference," Nancy said quietly. "Humans have always looked to the horizon, wondering what lies beyond." As the fleet reached the edge of the solar system, all 100 ships simultaneously engaged their main drives. The energy readings spiked, and in a flash of brilliantly colored light, they were gone. "Did they just?" the Danubian began. "Yes," Nancy confirmed. "That was faster than light travel, but nothing like our current technology. No wonder they needed new navigation systems." In the silence that followed, the observers tried to process what they had just witnessed. Humanity had not only left, they had leaped forward in a way the Council had never anticipated. Counselor Draz moved to stand beside Nancy. "Will we ever see them again?" Nancy looked at the empty space where the fleet had been. "That depends on whether the Council learns from its mistakes. Humanity has moved on, but they've left the door open. The question is whether we're brave enough to follow." 20 years passed since the first Exodus ships vanished beyond the edge of Council space. In that time, the Galactic Council had changed more than in the previous 1,000 years. The Grand Chamber, once full of confidence and ceremony, now echoed with urgent debates and worried whispers. "The Centauri Medical Alliance reports critical shortages in cancer treatments," announced a council member. "Research teams have tried for 15 years to replicate human pharmaceutical methods without success." Similar reports came from across Council space. The removal of human innovation had created a technological stagnation that affected everything from medicine to energy production. The most advanced Council worlds had adapted, but many younger civilizations struggled. High Counselor Vren, his tentacles now gray with age, called for order. "We must focus on solutions, not lamentations. The humans are gone. We must find our own path forward. A representative from one of the younger species stood up. Perhaps the humans were right to leave. The Council claims to represent all species equally, yet some are clearly more equal than others. Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. In the decades since humanity's departure, dozens of younger species had demanded reforms or threatened their own withdrawals. "We have reports from the border regions," said the intelligence chief. "The space humanity moved through is experiencing significant changes." Images appeared on the main screen showing worlds beyond Council space. New settlements flourished on planets the Council had deemed uninhabitable. Trading posts buzzed with activity from species the Council had classified as pre-spaceflight or primitive. These civilizations were deemed too undeveloped for Council membership, the intelligence chief explained. But it seems humanity had no such reservations about establishing relationships with them. "On what basis?" asked a Council member. "Mutual respect and fair exchange, according to our sources," was the reply. These emerging alliances have created new trade networks and cultural exchanges that operate completely outside our jurisdiction. Nancy Harper was no longer present in the Council chambers. She had died peacefully 5 years earlier, but not before witnessing the beginning of the changes she had predicted. Her successor as human expert was a young historian named Ryan Ford, one of the few humans who had chosen to remain in Council space. The Council's fundamental mistake, Ryan told them, was assuming that control equals stability. Humanity proved that innovation thrives on freedom. As the Council session continued, an alert sounded. "Priority message from the border observation post," announced the communication officer. The main screen activated, showing the commander of the outpost. "We've detected an approaching vessel of unknown configuration. It's requesting direct communication with the Council." Moments later, the face of a woman appeared on screen. She had the distinctive features of a human, but with subtle differences that suggested generations born in space. "I am Linda Owens, commander of the colony ship Hope's Journey," she said. "We separated from the main Exodus fleet 50 years ago to establish our own path." The Council chamber fell silent as she continued. "I bring news from what we now call the Exodus Confederation. Humanity has settled dozens of worlds across multiple star systems, creating a loose alliance united by mutual respect and shared goals." "How is communication maintained across such distances?" asked a science counselor, unable to contain his curiosity. Linda smiled. "We developed instantaneous communication technology shortly after leaving Council space. Distance is no longer a barrier for us." "Impossible," the scientists sputtered. "The physics doesn't allow for." "The physics as you understand it," Linda corrected gently. "We found another way." High Counselor Vren leaned forward. "Why have you contacted us after all this time?" "To extend an invitation," Linda replied. "The Exodus Confederation has voted to establish limited diplomatic relations with the Council, not as supplicants seeking membership, but as equals offering partnership." She paused, letting her words sink in. "The galaxy is larger and more wondrous than either of us realized. Perhaps it's time to explore it together, side by side instead of one leading the other." As the transmission ended, the Council erupted in debate. For the first time in decades, something new had entered their carefully ordered galaxy: hope. 100 years had passed since humanity began its exodus from Council space. The Galactic Council chamber looked nothing like it once did. Gone were the strict hierarchies and formal procedures that had governed galactic politics for millennia. In their place stood a circular arrangement where representatives from all worlds sat at the same level, their voices carrying equal weight. At the center of this transformed chamber stood Peter Williams, a human who had chosen to return as a bridge between civilizations. As the elected facilitator of the new council, he had overseen the most dramatic reforms in its history. "Today marks the centennial of the Great Departure," Peter said, addressing the gathered representatives. "It seems fitting to reflect on how far we have all come since then." The main display activated, showing images of the old council in session. Many younger representatives had never seen how things were before, and murmurs of surprise filled the chamber. The former council operated on a principle of stability through control, Peter explained. Advancement was carefully managed. Innovation was treated with suspicion. Change was something to be feared and contained. The images shifted to show the current state of both civilizations. The Reformed Council now encompassed over 800 worlds, many of which would never have qualified for membership under the old rules. Beyond Council space, the Exodus Confederation had grown to include hundreds of star systems united by instantaneous communication and rapid transit networks. In their effort to maintain stability by constraining humanity, the former council lost the very spark that would have ensured their civilization's continued vitality. Peter continued. Many of the original council members have been surpassed by the younger species they once patronized. Representatives from the ancient founding species nodded in solemn agreement. Their civilizations had been forced to adapt or fade into irrelevance. The Exodus Confederation has become a thriving civilization that evolved in directions no council predictive model could have anticipated, Peter said. We maintain diplomatic relations with this reformed council, but remain independent. Both our societies are stronger for it. He gestured toward a new addition to the chamber. In the spot where the High Counselor's elevated platform once stood, a simple monument had been placed. It depicted an Earth globe with an inscription. The greatest danger to civilization is not chaos, but the fear of it. This monument carries the signatures of both Council and Exodus leaders, Peter explained. A reminder of a lesson learned too late by some, but hopefully never forgotten by any who come after. An elderly Vexian rose slowly from his seat. It was Representative Zorlak, one of the few remaining members who had witnessed the Exodus firsthand. I voted against human membership 3 times, he admitted, his voice thin with age. I believed I was protecting our way of life. Instead, I nearly destroyed it. He looked around the chamber. Had we embraced humanity's drive to explore and innovate rather than trying to contain it, we might all be part of one great civilization today rather than 2 separate ones. Peter smiled kindly at the old alien. Perhaps separation was necessary. The council needed to find its own path to change, just as humanity needed freedom to find its way. A young representative from a species that had evolved sentience after the Exodus raised her hand. Will the 2 civilizations ever fully reunite? That remains to be seen, Peter replied. But the borders between us grow more permeable each year. Ideas, people, and cultures flow back and forth. Perhaps our grandchildren will see the distinction fade away entirely. As the session ended, Peter walked to a small observation deck overlooking the galactic core. The view was spectacular, yet he knew that beyond his sight, human ships were exploring regions the Council had never dreamed of reaching. His communication device chimed with a message from the Exodus Confederation's Central Council. It contained only 5 words that filled him with hope for the future. New horizons discovered. Come see. Peter smiled. A century ago, the Council had been too afraid to follow where humanity led. Now, perhaps, they were finally ready for the journey.